Hi, good morning, Year 9. We are going to be continuing on with our lessons on photosynthesis. Today is going to only be about the required practical. So required practicals are ones that they can examine you on. So they are very important, and we do need to know what is going on in them, the variables, what the purpose is, and the kind of results we would expect to see. So for this, I have made a worksheet that is attached in Show My Homework. So you will need that when you are watching the video that I have also added a link to on the Show My Homework. You can either print it off and do it by hand, or you can do it on the Word document itself. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we need to be able to understand how to carry out an investigation into the rate of photosynthesis. We've been looking at photosynthesis, we've looked at things that can affect photosynthesis, and also importantly the word and the symbol equations for photosynthesis. For levels 2 to 4, we need to be able to list some of the steps or the method of how to carry out the investigation and identify the variables involved in the investigation, so the independent, the dependent and control variables. For 5 to 6, we need to be able to describe fully how to carry out the investigation. We need to be able to describe the control variables that have to stay the same, and also some suggestions on how you can do that. You also need to be able to describe the use of certain equipment, so why are we using pieces of equipment, and also for the higher students we need to know how to calculate light intensity. And for 7 to 8 we need to be able to take it a bit further and explain the limitations of an investigation and how to improve it, so an evaluation of an investigation. Okay, so I've included this link in Show My Homework. Alas, it is a little bit difficult to get our hands on some pondweed at the moment to do our video, but I had a trawl through YouTube and this video was very good. There are plenty of other ones as well if you want to take it further and watch some other ones, some slightly different ways of doing it. And different control variables and things like that are being used. Remember, in the exams, it's not going to be exactly the same method as ones that we do in the lessons. They might give you a slightly different scenario, but the purpose of it and the idea behind it will be the same. So the majority of this is going to be some independent work. What I would like you to do when I say to exit this PowerPoint, what I'd like you to do is go onto the link that is on Show My Homework and here on the slide. You'll also need the questions that I have provided on Show My Homework. It's going to go through the method and it's going to ask some questions to think about on the way. If you could fill in the first page as you go through the video, and then when the video has finished and you've completed that first page, there are some questions on the second page for you to have a go at. All of them apart from the last two are spoken about in the video, so if you can't remember some of them, then obviously go back on the video and answer them. Now, for the first page, it asks you what the independent and dependent variables are. That is not mentioned on the video, so you are going to have to work that out. The independent variable, remember, is the variable that we change in an investigation, and we only ever change one thing. The dependent variable is what we are measuring in the investigation. Both of these, the independent and dependent variable, you can work out from the title of the investigation, because we always include the independent and the dependent variable. So when the title of the investigation comes up and you write that down, just pause the video and look at the sentence and work out what it is that's changing, what is it that we are measuring. Now there will be bullet points on the video of the method, so you can pop those down And as I say, there are questions as you go through. You don't need to write the answers to those down. They're just things to think about throughout the video. And then the questions to answer are at the end. And we will go over those answers after you've watched the video. So if you could exit this video now, go onto the YouTube video, make sure you've got the questions in front of you, either print out or on your computer. Either way is absolutely fine, and answer them as you go, and then come back here. Right, good luck, off you go. Okay, so hopefully we have watched the video now. We're actually going to go over the answers to the questions that I've put on the question sheets. So grab a different coloured pen and let's see how we got on. So one of the questions, the first question that I asked was, why is it that they're using sodium bicarbonate solution? And that's because you want to make sure that carbon dioxide is not a limiting factor. So we've gone through on the lesson the limiting factors of photosynthesis, and one of those is carbon dioxide. So we want to make sure that the maximum amount of photosynthesis is happening. So we need to make sure that the other things are not going to limit it. So well done if you got that. Number 2, why are other light sources turned off during the investigation? So this is kind of the lights that you would have in the room. And the answer to that is so that the only light is from the lamp. So there aren't different levels of different levels of light that are affecting the pond weed. Or you might have said that it makes it more valid. So valid is an important word that we need to be able to use. If an investigation is valid, that means everything else has been controlled. Question number 3, why would you leave the plant for 5 minutes before taking measurements? As they said in the video, it allows the plant time to adjust to the light intensity. Number 4, what assumptions do we make about the bubbles in this investigation? First assumption is that the gas is oxygen, which we know is a product in photosynthesis. So that is how we're measuring the rate of photosynthesis, by how much oxygen is produced. Plants will also produce carbon dioxide because they respire as well, but we're assuming that all of that gas is oxygen. We're also assuming that the bubbles are the same size, which does make the investigation slightly invalid because bubbles aren't always going to be the same size. So that leads to question number 5. How could we improve this practical by addressing one of the above assumptions? We could use a gas syringe, and that would actually collect a volume of gas as opposed to the number of bubbles that have been produced. So gas syringes you should be familiar with from chemistry. We use these to measure a volume of gas. Okay, so the next question is number 6. By doing each investigation 3 times, we make the investigation what? Now, this wasn't mentioned in the video, so I did give a clue by giving the first letter, and it makes it more repeatable. Okay, so by doing it 3 times, it's more repeatable. If we're getting the same answers each time, that is a good thing. Question number 7, how would we know in the lab, so if we were doing this in the classroom, in the lab, that is reproducible? And we would do that by comparing with other people's results. Now, reproducible and repeatable are also important words in the how science works, the science skills section. So repeatable is about you doing it and getting the same results. Reproducible is about other people doing the same investigation and also getting the same results. Question 8. How are we changing the light intensity in this investigation? So this is our independent variable. How is it that we're actually changing it? We're moving the plant closer or further away from the light source, or you could have said the lamp. Question number 9, and this is for higher only, so 5s and above. You do need to know how to calculate light intensity. So the equation is light intensity is 1 divided by, or 1 over, distance squared. So that is how we would calculate the light intensity. Question 10. The rate of something is always over time. So rates come up a lot in chemistry and in biology, and it's also always how quickly something is happening. So it's always over time. How would we calculate the rate of photosynthesis? So in this investigation, where we're counting the number of bubbles, the rate of photosynthesis would be the number of bubbles divided by time, or over time. So very well done if you got those answers. They are the slightly trickier questions, so these would be mostly 5 to 6s. Okay, so the last 3 questions, 2 of which were not mentioned in the video. For question 11, why would using an energy efficient bulb such as an LED make the investigation more valid? So remember, validity is all to do with controlling all other variables. And it was mentioned in the video that energy efficient bulbs, or LEDs, produce less heat. And heat, or temperature, affects the rate of photosynthesis. So the closer it would be to the bulb, we wouldn't know whether that's because of the light or whether that's actually because the temperature is going up, and would make the reaction faster. Question 12. Name 2 variables that were controlled in this investigation. So it was not spoken about the control variables. So these are things that you may have come up with. These are the ones that I thought of off the top of my head, but there are other valid answers. So it's turning off the surrounding light. Species of pondweed, so he did actually use the same species of pondweed each time. The volume of water, or ensuring that the water level is above the pondweed. The volume or the concentration of sodium bicarbonate. And the time for each investigation, for each set of results. So well done if you got 2 of those. And finally, probably the harder question, 13. Name 1 variable that should be controlled that was not mentioned in the video. So it wasn't mentioned about the species of pondweed. So if you did put the species of pondweed on this one, then that's great. The length of the pondweed, or you could say the number of leaves that the pondweed had, because all of those would affect the results. So very well done if you thought of one of those. Again, those are the ones that I came up with off the top of my head, but there can be other valid answers to that. If you do have a question on 12 or 13, want to see if one of the things that you've put is correct, then just drop me a message either by email or on Show My Homework. Okay, so very well done if you were able to answer those questions. These are the kind of questions that you might get in an exam, so we do need to be able to think about them. The last few questions are definitely the higher questions, but validity does come up in any of the tiers that you end up doing. Right, so I found this that is a nice little summary of this required practical, looking at the effect of light intensity on photosynthesis. So it's completely up to you what you want to do with this. If you want to pause the video and make some notes on what is on here. So it talks about the results that you would expect to see. So the closer the lamp, the more bubbles are produced over time, or the higher the rate of photosynthesis. That would be the expected results from this. There's also a few points on the kind of things that might be asked in the exam as well, with the answers on there. Alternatively, you can just copy this, do a print screen and copy this over to a Word document, or print it out for your notes. Print it out for your notes. Any one of those are absolutely fine, but it would be good to have something that you can refer to in Year 11 before you take your GCSE exams, because this required practical is important along with all the other required practicals. Okay, so that is it from me today. Hopefully we're able to just come up with the steps to carry out an investigation into the rate of photosynthesis and also identify some of the variables in the investigation. So the independent variable being the one you change, which would be the light intensity, and the dependent variable, what you're measuring, either the number of bubbles or the rate of photosynthesis or the volume of oxygen produced if you were using a gas syringe. Any one of those would be acceptable. 5 to 6, we need to be able to describe how to carry out the investigation. So we would need to know the full method, describe the control variables that must remain the same, so being able to identify them and also how you control them. Describe the use of certain equipment, so why are we using a meter stick, why are we using an LED lamp or normal lamp, why are we using pondweed, so we looked at that in a previous lesson because it's easy to see the oxygen being produced, those kind of things. And also know how to calculate light intensity, so we do need to know that equation if you're going to be sitting the higher exams. For 7 to 8, we need to be able to explain limitations of an investigation. So that was looking at the assumptions that were made about the size of the bubble and that it's oxygen, and also give suggestions on how you can improve it, basically an evaluation. So things like using a gas syringe to measure the volume of gas as opposed to the number of bubbles. So well done for taking part in this lesson. Obviously, sorry that you are unable to carry out this practical, but I'm sure when we get to year 11, we'll be able to go back over these required practicals that have been missed so that you better understand what it is that you're doing and why it is that you're doing it. As I said previously as well, there are plenty of videos. I think Primrose Kitten has a video on this required practical as well. So if you're not 100% still on this required practical, please feel free to go and have a look at some of those. They're normally pretty short, so you can have a look at a few of those to get a better understanding if needs be. Okay, well, I hope you're all well. Well done for taking part in the lesson. Take care of yourselves, and you'll hear from me tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.